Alec Miran is with us now from Washington. He is a longtime CNNer. We have worked together multiple times, Mr. Miran, and he was there in Beijing in 1989, was producing our coverage when Chinese authorities yanked the plug right on CNN, took us off the air because they didn't like our coverage. Alec Miran, thank you so much for coming in.
Glad to be here, Brooke.
So, here is, first let me just play this historic moment, CNN's Bernard Shaw reporting from Beijing.
I'm being told that the government officials are coming into the CNN control room now. This man with a piece of paper in his hand, I'm certain that is not a party invitation. And let's just watch what happens. Alec Miran is appealing to this official, and this official is calling his bosses at whichever office he's calling.
What you are telling me, what the government is telling me, is that we were given permission for a 1-week lease to bring our Earth station in here. You're not saying that. You're saying we were only allowed to come in to cover the Gorbachev visit. How about all the other stories we did about China that didn't concern Mr. Gorbachev?
Yes.
That has nothing to do with you? Then why does this have anything to do with you?
Wow, Alec Miran, May of 1989. I mean, just watching you watch that. I mean, before we even talk about what were these pictures out of Hong Kong, can you just take me back to that day? Take me back to that day in Beijing and how it foreshadowed what was to come on June 4th.
Well, we had originally gone to cover the visit of Mikhail Gorbachev to China. First time that the two most powerful communist nations in the world had met. It was a big deal for us. We had been on the air 12 hours a day for about a week and a half. And we still had another 8 hours left on our satellite lease, which we never believed they would allow us to bring in our own satellite dish because it gave us more freedom than any other broadcaster had ever had. And among the major networks, only a couple of us had our own transmission, so it was a big deal. Anyway, our lease was about to run out in 8 or 9 hours' time, but the pictures were so fabulous that I was told to try to keep us on the air for a while longer, and that's what this argument was about. In retrospect, if they had just let our lease run out and not renewed it, this could have all gone very quietly. But as it was, this became a moment, like you said, that foreshadowed it, because if they were willing to treat the free press like this, what were they going to do to their own people? And I think this made the situation seem a lot more serious for viewers at home and also the people in China. As a matter of fact, I'll never forget, about 20 minutes after we were shut down, and I was in the hotel elevator, and there was a hotel employee who was very young, a woman, and she said, "Thank you for what you did." And I said, "I didn't do anything. The students did it." And she said, "Well, they weren't going to come in while you were watching." And so we continued to watch, but we weren't live, and you know, I guess for some ways it was a foreshadowing.
So you and I should point out Roger Strauss, who is directing this entire show and has been for many years, he was sitting in front of you directing the show from, you know, right where you all were in China. But as you look at these pictures playing, and there's Roger, shout out to Roger, as you look at these similarities, these pictures coming out of Hong Kong, and even talking to Jeannie Mose earlier today, you know, who was there as well, she just was talking about the energy among the students, what seemed to be such positivity. How do you compare the then to the now and what we're seeing in Hong Kong?
I think similarities about the protests is that in both of them it started with a fairly small bunch of students. In fact, the Tiananmen protest started a month and a half before that clip you showed. I was in China, and our bureau chief woke me up after an 18-hour flight and said, "You have to come see this. There's a demonstration." And I said, "Demonstration in China?" And he said, "Yes." We went out to Tiananmen Square, and there were 5 or 6 demonstrators being led by the police. And Bureau Chief Mike Chinoy said, "Well, this can't happen. Tomorrow they'll be gone." And they weren't gone. And it grew, and it grew, and it grew. And not only was it students, you would have entire hospital staffs come down to treat people who were, you know, there was sick, there was, you know, people were getting overheated. And I get the sense that that's the same sort of vibe that they have here, that it was started by students. It's growing exponentially. It's grown to other parts of Hong Kong. And one of the interesting things, in an indication that the Chinese government and the Hong Kong leadership don't think it's going to stop anytime soon, is that they canceled a huge fireworks display that would be Wednesday night Hong Kong time for what's National Day. It's normally one of the biggest holidays. But in 1989, Tiananmen Square, which is one of the biggest squares in the world, they estimated at one point there were 1 million students there, it became almost like a city. They had mobile kitchens, they had porta-johns, you know, and I get the sense that that's happening here too. It's really taken on a life of its own.
Taking over highways, sea of people as far as the eyes can see, but then of course what you saw in Tiananmen Square within what the unthinkable, the martial law, the tanks, and what ensued, you know, hoping nothing like that obviously happens in Hong Kong. But when you look at the pictures, there are certainly similarities. Alec Miran, thank you so much for coming in today to DC. We truly, truly appreciate you, my friend and my colleague. I appreciate it. And Roger Strauss, thank you, sir, as well.